not usually into those creepy cult movies. I like my horror movies with plenty of scary monsters. However, when I heard summoning the spirit uses the same Bigfoot suit as the one in Exists, well, I figured I just had to check that out. Now, let me just be clear here. The Bigfoot suit isn't a knockoff or replica of the one from Exists. It's the actual suit that was used in the movie, which is pretty cool because it looks awesome. You get to see a lot of this suit too. Sure, it's mostly just Bigfoot looking around, but hey, that's better than nothing. We first see a couple out in the woods. They're firefighters that are out of work. And what do you do to get paid when you're a firefighter? You start fires. Well, that's probably not the moral thing to do, but that's why these guys are out here. They don't get too far, however, because they're caught, knocked out, and when they wake up, there's music playing in the forest, and Bigfoot attacks. Now we meet Clara and her husband Dean. He's a writer and she's a therapist or something, and they're looking to start over with their new life. So they buy a cabin out in the woods. There's a couple of reasons for this change, but the biggest is that Clara's pregnant. Oh, well, scratch that. She's not pregnant anymore. They end up losing the baby. Worse yet, Clara learns that she can't have kids at all. That sucks, and they both take it pretty hard. Clara pretty much wearing her heart on her sleeve, and Dean taking his anger out on an old bassinet. That's where he meets Arlo, his new neighbor, and he's pretty friendly.
I love you, Dean.
Carla goes for a drive to get some air and ends up meeting Celeste, a hitchhiker on her way to meet with Arlo and his friends. When she leaves, Celeste invites Carla and Dean to meet her other friends, which they call themselves the Mountain People. The next day, curiosity kills the cat, and Carla heads over to see what the cult's all about. Of course, they never call themselves a cult, but come on, it's pretty obvious. Later on, Carla and Celeste go for a dip, and we learn a little bit more about her. Celeste is a runaway, no surprise there, and Clara opens up about her pregnancy for the first time to someone other than her husband. Just then, a branch falls into the water.
It's a sign!
And Celeste says that it's a sign that she wants to say hello. But did you ever stop and think that maybe just a branch fell in the water? Well, maybe not, because Bigfoot threw it? Carla's wanting to meet with all the new neighbors, and Dean doesn't really want to go. Good for him, I wouldn't either. But Carla insists.
Okay.
When they see him, they're all acting like a bunch of animals.
Because we're primal beings.
It's weird. When they're done, we meet the whole crew. There's River, Clear, and Jerry, who's kind of cute for an older lady. I mean, I don't know. Man, I need to get laid.
I love you, Dean.
After greeting them, they each say, "I love you."
I love you, Carla.
Which just screams cult if I ever heard it. Carla and Dean brought them some pot cookies, but that really offends Clear, who says it fogs the senses. But there's no way everyone here isn't high as right now. They meet with Arlo, who we learn that he's the one growing the cult by using a podcast to attract a wider audience. His teacher, Iona, started it, and he's grown their numbers significantly. But where's Iona now? Outside, they all partake in a little moonshine. So much for keeping their head clear. Celeste says that she's going to go up and be with the spirit soon, but Jerry says that she's too young. William here has been the spirit once before, but he came back. This doesn't really make sense the first time you watch, but trust me, in the end you'll get it. River gets up to get more moonshine, but really she sneaks into Arlo's bunk and snaps a bunch of pictures. She sends them to a guy named Gil. Apparently she's some sort of undercover agent or something. But she's had enough. The cult killed someone, and she's afraid for her life. He says he'll come pick her up, but she's not alone in here. River's cover is blown and they kick her out of the mountain people cult. Which, I don't know, sounds kind of like a good thing to me, but once you're in, you don't get out.
I won't say anything.
She runs into the woods and they start playing that music over the speakers again, which seems to trigger Bigfoot for the attack. Finally, it took long enough. In the morning, Clara gets a message from a girl named Laura apologizing for the mess she's caused and saying that Dean still talks to her. What's up with that? Sounds like Dean's been unfaithful. She's pretty ticked about it too and goes to confront her husband right away. But when she sees him, he's on a writing spree and can't be stopped.
Pouring right out of me.
Apparently, he's hit a bit of a roadblock, but that's been lifted and creativity is flowing through him again. So she decides to not interrupt him and instead head over to her new friends. Is that Christian Bale? It looks just like him. They drink more moonshine, then they all start dancing and going wild again. Celeste and Carla kiss, so I guess she's getting revenge on her husband for cheating on her? So now she's making out with a girl? Whatever, I'm not complaining. In the morning, Dean wakes up alone and he wanders over to find his wife intermingled with everyone. Knowing Arlo's to blame for this, he starts beating the crap out of him until they're both asked to leave. But Celeste looks really worried for her friend. Alone now, Dean and Carla finally get to talk. And yes, it turns out that Dean banged a student, got caught, and was fired. And that's why they had to all start over.
It's a little more complicated than that, but okay.
So Carla goes and has an orgy with the cult. Sounds fair to me. An eye for an eye. Are they even now? Dean heads into town to clear his mind a bit, and outside a grocery store, he sees a missing person poster for River. Now he has the evidence he needs to show his wife that these people are no good. At night, Claire's still outside and Arlo shows up to apologize. But she doesn't want to hear it. She just wants to be left alone.
Join us.
But she's been chosen to join them, to be like new. That's when Arlo stabs her and knocks her out. When she wakes up, she's laying on a table like they're gonna eat her or something. Arlo warns everyone to bow their heads and not to stare. And then, Bigfoot walks in. I get that Clara's already probably freaking out, but what do you do when you're stabbed, laying on a table, and a Sasquatch wanders in? It looks around a bit and notices a picture of Arlo and Iona. Take notice of that ring, because from here on out, things get really confusing. I'm just gonna say what happens on the screen, and then afterwards we'll talk about it. Bigfoot goes on a killing spree, tearing heads off and ripping people limb for limb. Everyone seems to turn on each other. Dean shows up and he's like, whatever, you guys do you, I'm taking my wife and getting out of here. They get into the woods, but Arlo chucks a rock at him and stabs Dean, saying that no one can know about them and what they do. But then why do you have a podcast about the cult? He goes on and on about nature and all that crap until finally Bigfoot takes him out. Dean stabs the beast, which seems to kill it. But before dying, Bigfoot lays down next to Carla, holding her. Later on, she wakes up to see that Dean's dead, and the giant hairy hand that was once holding hers is now a human hand with that ring on it. Carla strips down, she wanders off into the woods and becomes the next Bigfoot. Later on, we see Celeste, the new leader of the Mountain People cult, and Bigfoot wandering around. But she's not alone. She's got a baby. Okay, I know what you're all thinking. What? Because that's the same reaction I had. But let's walk through it a bit. Remember that this is just my interpretation, which could very well be wrong. What do I know? What I think happened is this cult takes turns being the spirit, or Bigfoot. Not dressing up in costume, they're the actual Bigfoot. Why you would want that, well, I don't really know, but here we are. Iona went through the ceremony sometime before, and she's the creature for most of the movie. I think maybe Arlo was next in line, but Iona wasn't happy with how he's running the cult, using the podcast and brewing moonshine, stuff like that. So she put a stop to it. Either that, or it's just part of the ceremony for Bigfoot to rip people's arms off. So Dean kills Bigfoot, who's actually Iona, and when she dies, she turns back to human form. It's now Carla's turn to be Sasquatch, and she runs off into the woods, turns into the monster, and now with a new body, she can have children. Hence the baby Bigfoot. Now, I'm not qualified to talk about child loss, but I'm pretty sure if I couldn't have kids, I wouldn't turn into Bigfoot to have them. But again, what do I know? I could be completely wrong. There's a lot going on here, and it helps to watch the movie twice to kind of take it all in. The acting was pretty darn good, and the music fits the mood. My only complaint here is that there are some parts that kind of drag. It would have been nice to get some more kills earlier on to break it up a bit, but I think they went slow on purpose to set up the story. I give Summoning the Spirit 3 cups of Arlo's homemade moonshine out of 4.